Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. They expected an army, but a single human ship showed up. The LOM Messenger, the vast expanse of space stretched endlessly before the Kraken Alliance fleet. 10,000 ships, representing 7 different species, formed a bristling wall of weaponry and military might. Warships of every conceivable design hung against the backdrop of stars. Sleek, predatory vessels of the insectoid Vacae, the massive city ships of the Dandry, the crystalline battle platforms of the Zenith Collective. Together, they constituted the largest offensive armada ever assembled in the history of the galaxy. Admiral Fithriller of the Kraken Directorate stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Inexorable Judgment, his 4 arms folded behind his back as he surveyed tactical displays. The blue-skinned commander's compound eyes reflected countless data streams showing fleet formations, weapons readiness, and approach vectors toward the SA system. "The humans have been informed of our approach," Vexer asked, his voice a gravelly rumble. First Strategist Mex Lauren nodded. "Yes, Admiral. Their defensive fleets are mobilizing, but intelligence suggests they have fewer than 300 warships. Our projections indicate total orbital superiority within 6 standard cycles." Vol's mouth tentacles twitched in satisfaction. The humans had been an irritant for too long, expanding their territories, forming alliances with vulnerable species, and disrupting the carefully cultivated balance of power the Kraken had maintained for centuries. Their technological advancement rate was concerning, their adaptability frustrating. Better to crush them now before they became a true threat. "Sir," called the communications officer, her scales shimmering with agitation. "We're detecting a single vessel approaching from the human territories." The Admiral turned. "A single vessel, not a fleet." "Confirmed, sir. Just one ship. Small, barely armed according to our scans." A ripple of amusement spread through the bridge crew. Was this some kind of joke? A suicide mission? The arrogance of humans never ceased to amaze the Kraken leadership. The tactical display shifted, showing a sleek gunmetal gray vessel approaching at sublight speed. It was indeed small, perhaps 1/10 the size of the Inexorable Judgment, with minimal weapons emplacements visible. Its hull bore the insignia of the Terran Confederacy, a stylized Earth surrounded by stars. "They send one ship against our armada?" Second Strategist Carr laughed, his ridge crests expanding in derision. "Perhaps they wish to surrender personally." But Fithriller felt unease crawling along his spine. "Magnify, full analysis." The image zoomed in, revealing more details of the human vessel. It appeared remarkably ordinary, a diplomatic cruiser class according to Alliance intelligence designations. Yet something about its approach troubled the Admiral. It was too confident. "They're transmitting, sir," the communications officer reported. "Standard diplomatic frequencies. They're requesting direct communication with Fleet Command." Fithriller considered for a moment. "Accept the transmission. Let us hear what desperate plea they bring." The main viewscreen flickered, revealing the human's face. She was dark-skinned with close-cropped black hair and eyes that carried the intensity of a predator. Her uniform was simple, a dark blue with minimal insignia. "Admiral FX Fithriller," she said, her universal translator rendering her words in imperfect Kraken. "I am Commander Sarah Chen of the Terran Confederacy vessel Dialogue. I thank you for accepting this communication." FX's mouth tentacles rippled, a gesture of disdainful acknowledgement. "Commander Chen, you approach an invasion fleet with a single ship. I assume you bring terms of surrender from your government." Chen's expression remained calm. "No, Admiral, I bring an opportunity, a chance for you to withdraw your fleet and avoid catastrophic losses." Laughter erupted across the bridge. Even Thuller's rigid discipline couldn't prevent a gurgling chuckle from escaping his throat. "Surely, Commander, perhaps your translator is malfunctioning. You face the combined might of 7 galactic civilizations, 10,000 warships against your one. What possible leverage could you have to make such demands?" Chen nodded, as if expecting this response. "Admiral, we've been aware of your coalition building for some time. We've monitored your fleet movements, your weapons development, your strategic planning. We've allowed it to proceed because we needed to understand the full scope of the threat. Allowed, Thuller's amusement faded. You speak as though you had a choice in the matter. We did, Chen replied simply, just as we have a choice now. I'm authorized to demonstrate why challenging Earth would be a costly mistake. She glanced down, seemingly activating something off-screen. Please observe your tactical display, particularly Sector 912. Vueller turned to the holographic battle map. Sector 912 contained a wing of Valkyrie destroyers, 300 ships positioned as the vanguard of the fleet's right flank. Without warning, explosions bloomed across the display, not one or two ships, but dozens simultaneously erupting into fireballs. Alarms blazed as damage reports flooded in. The bridge fell silent. What is happening? Theuler demanded, his composure cracking. Sir, the tactical officer stammered, the Valkyrie ships are experiencing catastrophic reactor failures. 57 vessels destroyed already, more showing critical systems failures. Chen's voice remained level. Those ships used the Z920 quantum drive configuration, an innovative design, but with a critical vulnerability in the containment field generators when subjected to specific subspace frequency manipulations. Vueller stared at the human, comprehension dawning. You sabotaged our ships. Impossible. The Vri developed those drives internally. Did they? Chen raised an eyebrow. Or did they build upon theoretical models published by independent researchers who happen to receive funding through subsidiaries of Terran technological institutes? The galaxy's economies are remarkably interconnected these days. Another series of explosions lit up the tactical display, this time among the Dandry City ships. Panic was spreading through the fleet now, with commanders demanding explanations and vessels breaking formation. Admiral, First Strategist Mex Lauren whispered, the human ship isn't firing. There's no energy weapon signature, no missile launches. It's as if our ships are destroying themselves. Chen leaned forward slightly. Admiral, this is merely a demonstration. Every vessel in your fleet has similar vulnerabilities known to us. Some are hardware-based, others are software exploits, and others still are based on fundamental misunderstandings of physics principles that your scientists have embraced. We could continue this demonstration, but I think the point is made. Thuller's hands clenched into fists. You claim you could destroy our entire fleet without firing a shot. If necessary, Chen replied, though we would prefer to avoid that level of loss of life. Despite what your propaganda suggests, humans aren't genocidal by nature. The Admiral's mind raced. Was she bluffing? But the evidence was continuing to accumulate on his screens as more ships reported critical malfunctions. And if she wasn't bluffing, what are your terms? He asked, mouth tentacles now hanging limp with tension. Withdrawal of all coalition forces from human-claimed space. A non-aggression pact lasting 50 standard years. Open diplomatic channels to address legitimate grievances between our civilizations. Commander Chen's expression softened slightly. This isn't about domination, Admiral. It's about establishing mutual respect. Thuller's pride demanded resistance, but his duty to his forces required pragmatism. The humans had clearly been playing a longer, more sophisticated game than the Kraken had realized. How do we know you won't simply destroy us once we begin withdrawal? He demanded. Because we could have done that already, Chen said simply. We're offering peace, Admiral. The alternative is your choice, but I suggest you look at your tactical display before deciding. Vueller turned again to the hologram, where the number of disabled ships continued to rise. The mighty invasion fleet, carefully assembled over years, was unraveling before his eyes without the human vessel firing a single conventional weapon. You have 1 standard hour to begin withdrawal procedures, Commander Chen said. The dialogue will remain here to verify compliance. For what it's worth, Admiral, I hope this marks the beginning of understanding between our peoples, not merely the end of a conflict. The transmission cut. The bridge of the inexorable judgment remained silent as Theuler contemplated the greatest military disaster in Kraken history. A defeat delivered by a single human in a single ship who had never fired a shot. Fuller paced the war room of the inexorable judgment, his mouth tentacles writhing with agitation. Around a massive holographic table stood the commanders of the 7 coalition species, their faces displaying various expressions of rage, fear, and confusion. The room vibrated slightly as another damaged ship detonated in the distance. "This is cowardice," General Vexet of the Vree slammed his chitinous claw on the table. "The humans attack without honor, without even declaring their intentions. They sabotage rather than fight." High Coordinator Zal of the Dandri nodded, her translucent body pulsing with angry red lights. "3 of my city ships are complete losses, thousands dead, and still this single human vessel sits there, unthreatening, as if mocking us." Vexer stopped packing. "The question isn't about their methods, it's about our response. We have," he checked the chronometer, 42 minutes to begin withdrawal or face further demonstrations of their capabilities. "We should attack," Vexet insisted. 10,000 ships, even with sabotage, they cannot disable us all before we overwhelm their defenses. On the main display, the human vessel dialogue remained in position. Small, unimposing, yet suddenly the most dangerous object in the sector. Tactical analysis continued to show minimal weapon systems, standard engines, nothing to suggest how it was coordinating the widespread failures throughout the coalition fleet. "Are we certain they aren't bluffing?" asked Pret Thorne of the Zenith Collective, his crystalline voice chiming. "Perhaps they've exhausted their sabotage capabilities with this initial display." Vueller turned to his intelligence chief. "Analysis." The intelligence officer, a gray-skinned Ilra with multiple data interfaces connected directly to her nervous system, shook her head. "Impossible to determine with certainty, Admiral, but preliminary assessment of affected vessels shows multiple vulnerability vectors being exploited. Some ships experienced quantum field inversions. Others had navigation systems override reactor safeties. Still others show evidence of molecular destabilization in structural components. The diversity of attack methods suggests extensive preparation and capability." "You're saying they could indeed disable the entire fleet?" Fuller asked. "Given the evidence, I cannot rule it out," she replied. The war room erupted into overlapping arguments. Coalition unity was fracturing under the stress of this unprecedented situation. Accusations flew. The Vree blamed the Dandri for intelligence leaks. The Zenith Collective threatened to withdraw regardless of the coalition's decision. Fuller raised all 4 arms for silence. "Enough. We must decide, fight or withdraw. The consequences of either choice are severe." A communications officer entered, his movement hurried. "Admiral, Commander Chen is requesting to address the coalition leadership." The room fell silent. After a moment, FX Fuller nodded, "Put her through." The holographic display shifted, and Commander Chen's face appeared above the table, magnified and imposing. She looked calm, almost empathetic. "Admiral, coalition leaders, I understand you're deliberating your response. Before you decide, there's additional information you should consider." Fuller's eyes narrowed. "Speak, human." Chen nodded. "First, to demonstrate that our capabilities extend beyond your fleet." She gestured off-screen, and the display split to show multiple images, the coalition home worlds. On each, key military installations suddenly lost power, weapon platforms went offline, and defense grids flickered. "As you can see," Chen continued, as gasps and curses filled the war room, "our reach isn't limited to your invasion force. We've had access to your core systems for years. This is not a localized advantage." "Impossible," Vexet chittered in outrage. "You could not penetrate our home world defenses." "We didn't have to," Chen replied. "You did it yourselves, every time you upgraded your systems using components manufactured in facilities that utilized human-developed automation protocols. Every time you implemented communication encryption based on mathematical models published by our academics. You've been building our access into your civilizations for decades, piece by piece." Fuller felt a chill through his exoskeleton. The implications were staggering. If what she said was true, the humans had achieved something far more valuable than military victory. They had created strategic vulnerability on a galactic scale. "Why reveal this now?" he asked. "Why not simply allow us to attack and then destroy us?" Chen's expression softened. "Because, contrary to your intelligence briefings, humanity doesn't desire conflict or domination. We develop these capabilities defensively, as insurance against exactly the kind of coalition you've assembled. We prefer cooperation to confrontation." "You expect us to believe that after this display of threat?" High Coordinator Zal pulsed indignantly. "I expect you to recognize reality," Chen countered. "Had we wanted your destruction, this conversation wouldn't be happening. Instead, we're offering terms that allow all parties to move forward with dignity." The coalition leaders exchanged glances. The bravado that had filled the room minutes earlier was evaporating, replaced by cold calculation. "There is another option," came a new voice. All eyes turned to war philosopher Kev of the Athit, who had been silent until now. The ancient, gray-skinned strategist stepped forward. "We could attempt to destroy that single ship. Commander Chen must be coordinating these attacks if we eliminate her vessel before she can trigger further sabotage." A murmur of consideration spread through the room. Fuller studied the tactical display, mentally calculating firing solutions that might overwhelm the dialogue before Chen could react. As if reading his thoughts, Chen spoke again. "A reasonable consideration, war philosopher Kev. However, I should clarify that I'm not controlling these demonstrations personally. The moment the dialogue launched, autonomous systems were activated throughout your networks. My destruction would trigger automatic escalation protocols, not prevent them." She paused, allowing the implications to sink in. "Additionally, there are 17 other human vessels positioned strategically throughout coalition space, each capable of executing similar operations independently. You're not facing a single point of failure." Fuller felt the last hope of military victory evaporate. The humans had outmaneuvered them completely, turning the coalition's own technology against them while establishing redundancies that made conventional counterattacks futile. 28 minutes remain, Admiral," Chen reminded him gently. The war room fell silent as the coalition leaders looked to Fuller. The weight of command had never felt heavier on his 4 shoulders. Pride demanded resistance, but duty demanded preservation of his forces and protection of their home worlds. "If we agree to withdraw," he said slowly, "what guarantees do we have that these vulnerabilities will not be exploited in the future?" "None that would satisfy your concerns completely," Chen answered honestly. "But consider this. We've had these capabilities for years and have never used them offensively. We're revealing them now only because you forced our hand with this invasion fleet. Our terms include joint technological commissions that would work to identify and resolve critical vulnerabilities on both sides. Trust must begin somewhere, Admiral." Fuller looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each coalition leader. He saw the same calculation in all of them, the recognition that they had severely underestimated humanity, not just their technological prowess, but their strategic patience and restraint. "We will withdraw," Fuller announced, his voice heavy but clear. "Send the orders. All vessels are to return to their respective territories immediately." Chen nodded. "A wise decision, Admiral. The dialogue will monitor the withdrawal. Once completed, diplomatic channels will open for negotiation of the non-aggression pact. The Terran Confederacy looks forward to a more productive relationship with all coalition members." The transmission ended, leaving the coalition leadership in silence. The mightiest military force ever assembled in the galaxy was retreating before a single ship that had never fired a weapon. As the commanders dispersed to oversee the withdrawal of their forces, Fuller remained at the tactical display. He watched as the human vessel dialogue maintained its position, a small, seemingly insignificant presence against the vastness of space and the retreating armada. "They played a game we didn't even know existed," he murmured to his first strategist, Mex Lauren. Mex nodded. "The question is, Admiral, what game are they playing now?" FX's mouth tentacles twitched thoughtfully. Perhaps the one they claimed all along, seeking peace through strength rather than conquest through force. He turned away from the display. Either way, we have much to learn about humans. They are far more dangerous and perhaps far more honorable than we understood. As the inexorable judgment turned away from Earth, FX Theuler wondered what the galaxy would look like when next their civilizations met, as equals rather than adversaries. The humans, with their lone ship, had changed everything without firing a single shot. It was a lesson the coalition would not soon forget.